All right, today we're going to be doing lecture 20. This is going to be on permutations. So when we're talking about permutations, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the permutation formula. So to do this, you're going to need to know two numbers. You're going to need to know your n value and your r value. So the n is going to stand for the total number of objects. Total number of objects. And in this case, n is going to be greater than or equal to r. And then your r number is going to be your choosing number. R is going to be your choosing number. So that's how many you're going to choose from your total number of objects. So the permutation formula is going to look like this. You're going to have n factorial at the top. And then in the denominator, you're going to have n minus r factorial. So this is called the permutation formula. And we're going to be using this formula to solve questions that involve permutations. Okay, but before then, we need to learn about factorials, right? So let's talk about those. So when we're doing factorials, what we want to do is we want to start off with the number that we're given. In this case, it's a 4. And we want to multiply by every single whole number that's less than 4. So we're going to multiply the 4 by the 3, and then by the 2, and then by the 1. And we always stop at 1. And then 4 times 3 is going to give us 12. 2 times 1 is going to give us 2. And then 12 times 2 is going to give us 24. So that's going to be my answer for that one. And then if we want to do something a little bit larger, then the numbers are going to get much bigger than that. If we try a 6 factorial, we're starting off with 6, and then we multiply by 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. So in this case, what we have is we can group the last 4 numbers, the 4, the 3, the 2, the 1, and we know that if we multiply all those numbers, we're going to get 24. And then the first 2 numbers that we have, 6 times 5, that's going to give us 30. So then doing 30 times 24 is going to give us 720. And that's going to be our answer for that one. So that's what a factorial is. And the numbers can get quite big as you start off with a different number each time. So the factorial formula is going to be n factorial. We start off with n, and then we're going to multiply by the number that's 1 less than n. So I need to write n minus 1. And then I go down 1 more to n minus 2. And then I keep going down until I get to 1, and then I stop. So 2 times 1, and I always stop at 1. So there are 2 special ones that you need to know. 1 factorial is always going to be equal to 1. And 0 factorial is also always going to be equal to 1. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that later. But do know that if you take the factorial of 0, you're going to get 1. Now, if I try negative numbers, let's say I want to do -2 factorial, well, the factorial isn't defined for negative numbers. So -2 factorial does not exist. It does not exist. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to use the permutation formula to solve a couple questions. So when we have n permutation r, we're always going to have that n factorial at the top, and then n minus r factorial at the bottom. So we're going to use this formula to try this one right here. So let's do an example. Let's see if we can find 4 permutation 2. So here we have two different numbers. The 4 is going to be our total number, or our n value, and the 2 is going to be the r value. That's how many we're choosing from the original 4. So I've got 4 objects. I'm going to put that on top. So 4 factorial goes on the top. And then in the bottom of the fraction, I'm going to have 4 minus 2 factorial. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do the parentheses at the bottom. We still have a 4 factorial at the top, but in the denominator, we're going to have 4 minus 2, and that's just going to be a 2. And I bring down the factorial symbol. What I can do now is I can use that factorial and I can expand out the top. So I'm going to have 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's 4 factorial. But then in the denominator, I have 2 factorial. That's going to be 2 times 1. So what I do is I expand out the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to cancel out numbers that are the same on the top and bottom. So switching to red to do this, I know that the 2's are going to match up, so I can cross those out. I also know that the 1's are going to match up, so I can cross those out. And the only thing that I'm left with at the top is going to be 4 times 3. And we know that's going to be 12. So that's going to be our answer. And since there's nothing left in the denominator, I don't need to worry about anything that's in the bottom. My answer is just going to be 12. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at the classwork, and I wanted to do all the even ones with you. So let's take a look at the classwork. And we're going to do the even ones together. Okay, so number 2, it tells us 4 different numbers. It tells us to list all the possible permutations. List all the possible permutations. And then it gives us 4 numbers. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it tells us to take them 2 at a time. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these 4 numbers and we're going to be choosing 2 of them at a time. So my total number of objects is going to be 4, since I have 4 different numbers. and I'm going to take them 2 at a time. So I can put the 1 and the 2 together. I can put the 1 and the 3 together. And I can put the 1 and the 4 together. So that's what happens if we choose 2 numbers and the 1 comes first. So what if the 2 comes first? Then we're going to have 2 and 3 and 2 and 4. And then my last one is going to be taking 3 first. So I can put the 3 with the 4. So those are all the possible combinations. But notice I can switch the order on these. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take these 2 item sets and we're going to switch the order on them. So instead of having 1 and 2, I can have 2 and 1. Instead of having 1, 3, I can have 3, 1. Instead of having 1, 4, I can have 4, 1. And now I'm going to take these last 3 and just switch the order. So 2, 3 is going to become 3, 2. 2, 4 is going to become 4, 2. And 3, 4 is going to become 4, 3. So now, how many possible permutations are there? Let's count them up. So there's 3 right here, 3 right here. So now I'm at 6 so far. And then here we have 7 and 8, 9 and 10, and 11 and 12. So in total, I have 12 permutations. So 12 in total. So is there a way that I can figure out how many there are without even first doing it and listing out all the combinations? Well, there is a way I can do it. I can use the permutation formula, right? So remember the permutation formula, how you had n and r, you have n factorial at the top, and then on the bottom you have n minus r factorial. Well, what you can do is you can figure out what your total number is. That's going to be your n. And then you can figure out what your choosing number is going to be. And that's going to be your r. So let's try this one. How many objects in total are there? There are 4 different numbers, right? So up here, there are 4 different numbers. That's going to be my total number of objects, 4. And then I put down my permutation symbol. That's going to be the P right there. And then how many am I choosing at a time? That's going to be 2. Since I'm choosing 2 numbers at a time, right? So now putting these numbers in the formula, we're doing 4 permutation 2. And that's going to be 4 factorial on the top divided by 4 minus 2 factorial at the bottom. We know that's going to be 4 factorial over 2 factorial. And that's going to give us 12 in total. And that is the total number of permutations that we can get from just taking 4 numbers and choosing 2 at a time. Okay, let's look at number 4. For number 4, I'm given 4 permutation 4. When I put it in the formula, I'm going to have 4 factorial at the top. and I'm going to have 4 minus 4 factorial at the bottom. So what is that going to do? It's going to give us a 0 factorial at the bottom. Because what's 4 minus 4? That's going to be 0, right? And then 0 factorial, we know that that's going to be 1, right? So really, I've got 4 factorial divided by 1. And that's going to give us 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And we're dividing by 1. Only the 1s are going to cancel out. And that's going to give me 4 times 3 times 2, which is 24. So that's going to be my answer for number 4. Okay. The last one we're going to do together is number 6. So let's try that. So number 6, it says we have a team of 18 lacrosse players. And it needs to choose a captain and a co-captain. Co-captain. So we're going to use the permutation formula to figure this one out. So the first thing we need to know is, what is our total number of objects? That's going to be the big number, right? 18. So my n value is going to be 18. What is my r value? How many am I choosing from those 18? That's going to be the captain and the co-captain, right? So I'm actually choosing 2. So 2 is going to be my choosing number for this one. And then now that I know my 2 numbers, I can put it in the formula. So I'm going to have 18 factorial at the top. At the bottom, I'm going to have 18 minus 2 factorial. And then I just work it out from there. I know that 18 factorial is going to be a huge number, so I'm going to leave that at the top as it is. But then in the denominator, what's 18 minus 2 going to be? That's going to be 16, right? So I've still got 16 factorial at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand out the top until I reach 16 factorial. So at the top, I'm going to have 18 times 17 times 16, and I stop right there at the 16 factorial because that's going to cancel out with the 16 at the bottom, right? So I've expanded the top out a little bit. I stop at 16. We're going to cancel those out. So now I only have 18 times 17 at the top. And 18 times 17 is going to be 306. So we're going to have 306 different possibilities. All right, that's going to be it. Class dismissed. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them down in the chat box. I'm recording this, so I'm going to post it up on Canvas in a little bit. And I will see you guys on Wednesday.